welcome back.
Welcome to another episode of Labs Talk.
Yes, exactly. Welcome, Andreas. How are you today?
Welcome, Sven. I'm doing good. Actually, I've been out for last week together with you. You've only returned to office today. We did a Transalp together on our bicycles, and you did take a course this week, right?
I took a course this week, right? In the world's largest spa. I'm now an official sauna master, so
Woohoo!
I can also provide a lot of feed to you. No, what a change from my normal life, right?
It's progress. Come on. Talking about progress, we're going to make progress in Labs Talk. We're going to make progress in our understanding of quantum. But before we make progress, where did we come from, Sven?
So I think today we're advancing into the next area of quantum, right? But you said it correctly. Before we go there, let's recap. We first had a beautiful first episode about Quantum 101 with Isabel. That really was, we discussed all the things from entanglement to the qubits, of course, and things like that. Also a couple of use cases, actually. And then last episode, while we had some technical difficulties, we also discussed, luckily, the post-quantum crypto world, basically, right?
Indeed, that was pretty amazing to move from the theoretical physics and the underlying fundamentals to the implications in the real world with quantum safe cryptography.
I found it interesting with post-quantum that so quantum in this case makes our communication insecure because it's potentially breaking the cryptography that we know, but it also can help us, of course, to make it safe again, right? So, so there we discovered both sides of the coin, I guess.
Yeah. Talking about both sides of the coin, we're going to stick with somewhat quantum computing, but we're approaching it from literally the other side today. So we want to understand what are the problems that may make sense to be solved with quantum computing. That is the understanding that I got.
Yeah, so we really have a full episode where we basically just talk about use cases, right? So we really approach it from a use case perspective, from a pure use case perspective. We're not going to dive super deep into the mechanics of quantum computing today, but we just really wanted to help understand
what makes... We have an awesome guest who can share some first-hand experience where he looked into the technology.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome, Nadim. Let me get him on.
Welcome,
Hi, Nadim. How are you?
Hi, Andreas. Hi, Sven. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing good. Looking forward to this little episode. It's a new thing for me, but I'm really excited.
Nadim,
very cool.
Quick question. I forgot that behind the scenes before you went to the, I think, Twinfest in Leipzig. How did that turn out for you? We talked about our Transalp, and you went to Leipzig. How did that go?
Yeah, we had a very sports-oriented week, all of us, not together, at least not me with you, but yes, it turned out very well. It's a huge festival with 80,000 participants, everyone interested in sports, and I did 4 exercises in apparatus gymnastics in my age group, and I was pretty happy with my results.
Awesome. Cool. Sounds good.
Cool. Excellent. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Should we start with a quick intro to your person, Nadim? Can you quickly give us a 101 about you? What are you doing? Why are you interested in quantum?
Yeah, of course I can do that. So I'm a product manager at SAP. Based in the headquarters, and I'm in the group for customer experience and industries with the focus on retail. Historically, I've been in this area for 10 years, retail mainly, but it's now part of the bigger organization, customer experience. And I've had a long career with SAP already, so more than 25 years with different roles. And actually, why did I start with quantum computing? It started as a personal interest. So I read a book by this Austrian professor Zeilinger, and I was really inspired And then I took some courses on open HPI, this open platform, several quantum computing oriented courses, and I liked it. It's a challenge also from a cognitive level. It's not always so straightforward. It reminded me of my university times. So it was also challenging. And then, of course, if you have theory in your mind, you think about what you can do with that in your business life. And then I asked myself, why not try something out with your business topic? And then
Absolutely.
I reached out to the central team. There's a central team at SAP who supports these kind of things, and that's how this started.
Very cool.
With that, I think we can just really go into the challenge you did. Like professionally, you did have a complex challenge, or you do have a complex challenge that you try to solve with quantum computing. You mentioned you're working in retail sourcing, or the product that helps with retail sourcing. Maybe for Sven and I, we don't really know what that is. Maybe start from the very beginning. What is it? Why is it so complex? What are the boundaries in which this problem exists? And we'll go into the details later.
Yeah, of course. So the problem we are solving can be viewed from two angles. So there is the consumer's perspective and the retailer's perspective. Let's start with the consumer's perspective because it's easier to understand. All of us, we are consumers, right? So when you go shopping online, for example, you go to whatever web shop, and then you would like to buy products or services, and then you get information as to where you can get the products. For example, can you do a pickup? Can you do a home delivery? Can I have an express delivery? Does that cost more? The retailer tells you, or the web shop tells you when you can expect it. There might be different shipping methods involved and so on. And for that to happen, you need some logic. And actually, it's this logic that we are building. So we at SAP have a solution for that, and it's order management for sourcing and availability. It's a cloud native solution, and yeah, that's the problem we are solving for the consumers. And now the retailer's view is obviously similar. The retailer want to make the consumers happy, right? They want to make promises that they can keep, and in order to do that, they need to take a look at all their sites and premises that they have. So retailers typically have warehouses, distribution centers, but they also have physical stores. It's still a big business, although e-commerce is getting bigger and bigger, but physical stores are still a big business. And now they would like to combine all their assets they have. So for example, a product might be in several distribution centers, but at the same time in different stores. And now they have to make a decision for, let's say, Andreas, who's shopping. Where do I source the product from that Andreas wants, right? And for that, we have actually a solution, and that's sourcing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're basically saying that this is more complex than just choosing the warehouse that's closest to my delivery address, because that would be my quickest solution that I could find.
Yeah, so to be honest, for some retailers, this decision is easy. Some only have, let's say, for a geography like Germany, exactly one distribution center. In that case, you don't have to make a sourcing decision. Others, they have several distribution centers and many stores. So this can be hundreds or even thousands for big retailers, right? I mean, if you go to the pedestrian zone of your hometown, imagine all the brands that you see there. There are some big ones, and you know that they're all in all other big cities as well, right? So, yeah. And in this case, it's not trivial to pick the right decision, the right location, because, well, proximity, as you said, Sven, might be a good choice, but what's the benefit of taking the one location that is the closest? Is it maybe speed? The closer, the faster, or maybe it's about the cost. The closer, the cheaper, or the closer, the less carbon footprint you have. Yeah. So there are underlying business reasons that make you choose the one or the other location. And this has to be kept in mind when you take such sourcing decisions.
When you take those sourcing decisions or those conditions to optimize for one or the other, I could totally imagine that it's not a one or the other decision most of the time, that you want to try and optimize for two or even multiple of those goals. Is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biggest trade-off that a retailer has is, on the one hand, the customer satisfaction. They want to live up to the expectations of the customer, very fast and very convenient. They want to have loyal customers and customers that come back, But at the same time, they have to be profitable. And this is very often a trade-off. So that's why you have to balance not only those two goals, but several goals. For example, also capacity utilization might be something in addition, or internal costs like picking and packing costs or shipping costs, versus delivery time and so on. So these are to some extent conflicting goals, and a retailer would like to balance all of them. And this is not a very trivial decision in all cases, especially if you have many stores involved.
And just for connecting this to quantum computing, this is an optimization problem, right? So we have more or less lots of different parameters that are floating around, basically, and we can optimize for this parameter or for the other parameter, but we need to find the optimal solution across all these parameters, and that is not, and that is exactly what quantum computing is good for. Exactly. Is that the correct understanding? Yes.
Yes. So that's one area of quantum computing where it's very strong. I mean, you have had other talks, right, where other colleagues talked about other areas. I'm not so much of an expert there, but for optimization problems, quantum computing can help.
Okay.
And we took a closer look at how this helps us. So what we have done prior to quantum computing to solve this business problem that I described is we have built an algorithm that is not necessarily finding the best solution in all cases, but it's very fast. Combining all these goals that I mentioned, and delivers a response very, very fast, because you need to keep in mind it's retail business. Consumers are not very patient. Just think about yourself. If you are shopping and then you have to wait for, I don't know, more than 5 seconds until the system
That's
gets a
long
reply.
already.
That's very long. Yeah. So the goal, exactly. So the goal that we have is always sub-second. And that's basically then also the benchmark for your algorithm. And this proved to be also a critical point here because, we did, as I said, POC with the central team at SAP that is specialized on quantum computing. And the algorithm provides the correct result. But the problem is that the ramp-up time alone for a quantum system, quantum-based system, is too long for our use case. So, and it showed that our existing algorithm with even though it might not always return the best result, still provides a very, very good result, but in a much shorter time. And this algorithm can do the sub-second, whereas the quantum computing has a ramp-up time that is already above 1 second. At least the system that we use. So there might be others in the meantime. But at the time when we did that, this was a challenge there.
So that means right now this problem is solved in a slightly non-optimal way, but it's solved without quantum computing, and there's no quantum computing necessary right now, basically.
Or to rephrase that, quantum computing doesn't really bring in it just doesn't improve the situation.
Not for this use case, okay. Exactly.
And when you talk about not this use case, maybe we have prepared a few more. Maybe let's move on. There's more complexity we can think of, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the use case that I talked about is basically taking one consumer after the other. You can imagine there's several persons purchasing at the same time on a big web shop, and the algorithm today takes just the first consumer and then optimizes for this first consumer and provides a result saying, okay, this shopping cart is sourced from the distribution center in Munich. And the second one is sourced from the store in, I don't know, Mannheim, close to where I live. So it's a sequential decision, right? One after the other. And that's a bit less complex. But you could also imagine that if you do 1,000 decisions one after the other, this might not be optimal for the whole of these use cases or for the whole of these shopping baskets. You might want to re-optimize afterwards, after these 1,000 decisions were made, and maybe do a reassignment of these shopping carts. You have already made your promises to the consumer, but still you could say, well, I said the first should come from Munich, but now that I have had 10 other customers that I have to serve from Munich, I'd rather serve the first one from Stuttgart, for example. So this was what we had in mind with the second iteration, basically, when we made the problem more complex, to say, hey, why not optimize several orders at the same time? Yeah, and the result, actually, we had to stop somewhere, right? This whole project had also its limits in terms of timeline and so on. We did a first test there, or first POC, that didn't show that quantum computing was better, but we saw already that the use case works, so we don't have this ramp up time problem, because this use case would not wait for the consumer, right? You would still make a promise one by one, and then later, maybe an hour later, after 1,000 orders were placed, you would do a re-optimization in the background. So that was a good thing. But still, at least with the parameters that we applied and the assumption that we made, we could not prove that quantum computing was really better. It was on the same level, actually. Yeah.
I could imagine this problem, to that extent that I understood, is super complex and not many people have that problem. Is that about it?
Not many people have which problem?
That type of problem that you just batch all the orders in a very specific way that you described there, that this particular is very specific.
So I agree that most retailers, they do these sourcing decisions one by one. But things are moving very fast. Just think about what you knew about AI or large language models, let's say 3 years ago, before ChatGPT was there. So you have to be prepared for new use cases. And our customers are always interested in optimizing even the last bit. Yeah? And if we tell them that we found out that by resourcing 1,000 orders, you can gain, 5% profitability or even 0.5, then they would be very happy and curious. So sometimes you have to try out certain things, especially in this age where technology changes so fast. And so even if you have not found out that it works better now, it might be worthwhile to try that again, in 1 year from now or 2 years from now. And yeah.
So when do you think would that use case finally become complex enough for quantum computing, basically, right? So I think there's a next step in this use case where you now even take in the whole sourcing part, I believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a sourcing decision depends also on other things. So it's not only where do I have my inventory today and from where can I source it, and then I take the optimal decision, like either Munich or Stuttgart or Mannheim. But you can also think about the question, where should I put my inventory in the first place in expectation of the future demand? So that's more along the lines of an intelligent replenishment solution. And you could combine that, so and with this, the problem already gets more complex. It might sound a bit too future oriented if you think about it, but as I said, things are changing fast. Who would have thought that ChatGPT was so powerful today, right? Even 2 years ago. So that's why I'd be very open and not rule out potential use cases. And yeah, even there's one more aspect. So you could also think about where to build your DCs, your distribution centers, right? So that's a strategic supply chain design decision. Maybe there is also an optimization potential there.
So the quantum or the algorithm would basically tell you where in Germany, Europe, the world, basically you would optimally place these warehouses so you can best serve your customers, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's not well thought through, but it's just some inspirational ideas. Maybe you need a lot of simulation power to simulate that. Maybe quantum computing can help there. Maybe you also combine technologies. I mean, AI, so artificial intelligence, can also help. For example, you can also make promises to consumer without checking your supply chain. It just makes it based on experience, right? So you could maybe combine an engine based on AI that makes relatively good promises in no time. And obviously the AI has to be trained before. And then afterwards, you do some optimization based on a combination of classical algorithms and quantum computing. Who knows?
Nice. I mean, what I also find super interesting is that you actually had a real world problem and you had to translate it somehow into a quantum algorithm or quantum program. So maybe you can talk about that a bit, how that process looked like actually.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. So when we started, we had this business problem and we wanted to optimize 5 KPIs in parallel, right? Talked about the cost, the 2 cost KPIs, capacity, time, and so on. And we basically tried a bit an algorithm. We defined it, played a bit around, did some simulations, and then had an algorithm, and we just coded it. Yeah. But there was no formal definition of the problem that we're actually solving. And now, as soon as you start working with a group of research-oriented people, they need a formal definition of the problem. Not only them, but they needed to feed a quantum computing engine or also any other engine, right? So that's why we invested quite some time, and it took several iterations to finally come up with the formal definition of the problem. It's not so straightforward. Yeah, it's not so straightforward. And this is a good side effect of this whole project, because now we have this formal definition that we could use for quantum-based technologies, but we could also use it for classical optimization engines, because also they would need a formal definition so that they can run. So we can still decide whether this problem is more for quantum computing or for other technologies based on this formal definition. It's always a statement like, I want to minimize or maximize this target function with certain boundary conditions. So that's basically the bottom line, but it's not as simple as it sounds. The statement is a bit longer with several variables, and it took us quite some time, as I said.
I can totally imagine.
That,
Very interesting, really. Yeah.
Go
ahead,
Sven.
Sorry.
Oh, come on.
Now I wanted to shift a bit into the future now, actually. So when would you actually now think you would do another test run or so for quantum, for example? Would you wait for the next wave of complexity coming to retail sourcing, or do you think you're gonna wait for, let's say, the next quantum computer to become available, for example, or the next number of x qubits being added to a quantum computer? I don't know. How do you see the future, basically?
So the future is hard to plan. I mean, as always, but especially with these technologies changing so fast, it's hard to make a plan. So also based on my experience, sometimes certain opportunities just come up. So like in my case, I was interested in quantum computing, and then I met someone at SAP who drove this topic centrally, and I said, hey, why not sync with him? And then this project started. So sometimes it's just these opportunities that come your way, and you just have to grab them and follow up on them. So I don't have a plan now. Let's do a same project in 2 years. Sometimes you have a student who has this as his or her topic for a master thesis, and then you do it, and then all of a sudden you realize it's very beneficial. So
I could really imagine it's really trend driven in this case, right? So let's say quantum computing emerges again as a trendy topic or so, and you have a really interesting problem to solve, right? And of course that is a good setup to try out quantum again, I guess. Yeah. So very cool.
What is a bit difficult these days is with quantum computing, we have somewhat a competitor with artificial intelligence, right? It's a huge hype topic, and it gets a lot of attention. And I'm not debating that this is justified, because it's a huge topic, no doubt. So one has to see which technology will prevail, and maybe which niche or which part of the problems can be solved by one or the other technology.
Is it really competing with each other, or is it augmenting each other?
Good point. Maybe also augmenting. Competing was more in the sense of general perception, right?
Yeah, that for sure. Like AI just sucks
the masters and the analysts and the specialists. Yeah, exactly. They don't consume too many topics at the time. For them, it's always good. Oh, there is this big topic, and then everyone jumps on it, and even justified or not justified, everything's AI. And sometimes these are the phases where other things are ignored a bit.
We are running this series on quantum computing because we had this bet that quantum computing will be the next hype.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it's not over, so you never know. Yeah.
We try to
there's
surf
this analogy with this analogy with Henry Ford. So sometimes it doesn't fit perfectly, but I always have this in my mind when I think about predicting the future. So he built cars eventually, right? But if he had asked his future customers what they would need, the response was faster horses. Probably you know that. Hard to predict what will happen, and sometimes it's you need to fight a bit longer. Sometimes it's just coincidence that certain things happen, and just stay curious, and that would be my recommendation, right? To stay curious and see what technology can bring to you, and maybe solve your problems.
Stay curious. I like that. For those curious, you can subscribe to Labs Talk.
Please
curious,
do.
And
please
we
do subscribe.
Go into those.
Well, thank you so much, Nadim, and thank you everybody else for watching us. I think this was a really interesting discussion and a real use case that at some point might become ready for quantum computing. So that was cool to talk to you.
Yeah,
Thanks so
totally. Much. Nadim, thank you so much for sharing your insights. Stay curious.
Andreas, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. See you.
Ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye.